Edwards for 7 years, but I was a CV ICU nurse prior to this, so I've used this product like in practice and then with Edwards as well. So I'll just go through the setup. You guys, this is so much more user-friendly than your Vigileo monitors. It's easy to use. You have the ability to do a continuous SVR now, which you didn't really have with the Vigileo monitor previously, so hopefully you guys will like this monitor a lot better. When you plug it in, it should power on automatically, but everybody always asks me, where is the power button? Because if it's on standby mode, nobody can ever find it. So it's just right back here on the back, that little black circle right there. So anytime you're using the monitor, you have to put in the patient's gender, age, height, and weight before you do anything. And that's what you would have to do with the Vigileo monitor too, remember? Put in the little parameters there. So it's all touchscreen, so height here you can do inches or centimeters. Be really diligent about the increments that you use, because I've seen people put in 66 centimeters, just like, you know, and what happens is the BSA gets really off. So if the BSA is closer to the number 1, your CO and CI will be the exact same number. So people have called me and been like, why is my cardiac output 4.6 and my index is 4.3? And that's usually why, okay? So we'll do that. Kilos or pounds here, age, and then genders, male or female. So this is really quick to put in. You don't have to put in a patient ID, but you can if you'd like to. Then you click home. And for when you guys start to use ClearSight, the non-invasive, I'll show you this. So you guys see this little opaque box right here? You wouldn't know it because there's no button or anything, but that's how you would choose between the technologies that you want to use. This piece here controls the FlowTrack, okay? This piece down here controls the ClearSight, which is what people call the finger thingy, the little non-invasive, okay? So you're basically telling the monitor which piece it wants to register, this piece or that piece. So this little box right here, you would click that and you would choose which technology you want. Now, if it doesn't say anything in that little box, it's ready for FlowTrack. Even though it doesn't say FlowTrack, it's ready for FlowTrack, okay? If it says the word ClearSight in this opaque box, it's ready for ClearSight. It's in ClearSight mode. So just really be diligent on the technology that you're using, whether it's ClearSight or FlowTrack, that you look at that, because the zeroing screens are completely different and you might get stuck. Really, really important. So FlowTrack or non-invasive, pick which one. Again, if it says nothing, we're on FlowTrack mode. It's just not going to say the word FlowTrack here until I connect to the FlowTrack. So you guys have all used this guy before. The transducer is exactly the same. There's nothing different with it. Bifurcated down here. It's still red to bed, so it's the arterial pressure cable to the bedside. Green to the Edwards machine. This cable's 16 feet in length, so you don't have to have it at the head of the bed. Like, you can literally put it anywhere in the room that you want, and you don't have to use this transducer backplate. If you'd prefer to just use your normal backplate like you always do, and then just put this monitor in the corner, that's fine. This cable will reach, okay? Make sense? I know the head of the bed gets really crowded, so I always like to point that out to people. So again, red to bed, green to the Edwards machine, okay? Now, as you'll notice, it'll say the word FlowTrack at the bottom. Cool? 2 blue connections. What does blue usually stand for when it comes to pressure tubing? CVP. So if you don't have a CVP, guess what? Don't connect anything to the blues, okay? I've seen people connect them together. I've seen people do all sorts of weird things. Just don't do anything with them unless you have a CVP. So if this is your CVP transducer, it's only gonna go into one of the 2 holes, which happens to be which one? This one, right? Makes sense? And then where do you guys suppose this cable goes?
To our monitor.
Yep, to your bedside monitor to give it CVP. Okay, so it's just a slaving. At the end, these 2 go to the bedside, these 2 go to the Edwards monitor. Makes sense how they connect. Let's say you're the nurse taking over the patient and it was set up on the shift before you. Anytime you're ever gonna zero the technology, it's just right here. Real fast to find it, that's your zeroing screen. Whenever you zero your bedside monitor, make sure you do this one too. People forget to do this one all the time, okay? So you're just gonna level to the fleet static axis like normal, take your caps off, just have the art line zeroed there. Both, click 0 all. You should hear that little noise and it'll timestamp it there for when it was completed. And then you would also do the bedside. You don't have to do a weird Saturday Night Fever move across the room to do both at the same time. Just do one and then the other, okay? When you turn it back on to the patient, and I'm just gonna make this up, but just confirm that you have some kind of waveforms here, because you may have not connected something correctly, or sometimes even if you think it's connected and it's just a little bit apart, it won't register. So just make sure you have waveforms here. It takes about 40 seconds to get your first round of numbers, just like your Vigileo monitor does, and then it's going to repopulate every 20 seconds. So after you zero, just give it about 40 seconds. It should start populating some data for you. I'm going to go through these buttons really fast on the side just so you guys know what they are, because sometimes we're just pushing everything on the screen to try to get to where we're at. So I want to tell you what they are. I'm going to start at the bottom. 2-minute silence. You guys are pretty familiar, right? If you click and hold this for 3 seconds, it's standby. So if you need to go somewhere and you don't want the monitor to keep alarming at you, you can just stand by, disconnect, take the patient where you need to go. When you come back, reconnect, click here. Do you want to resume? Click yes, and then you'll be going again. Again, this is the 0 button. We just went over that. This camera would take a snapshot of whatever's on the screen at that time, and it would save it to a thumb drive if you had a thumb drive in the monitor, okay? So that's just nice for like research purposes, case study purposes. Maybe one of you guys are going to teach a hemodynamics class someday and you have a great patient scenario that you want to show everybody. You could use that. A lot of USBs though are being outlawed in hospitals, like for HIPAA reasons and things like that, so I don't know. Settings, just like on your phone, that cog button is always settings. This is where you can go back into that patient data screen if you need to change your patient's parameters here because you messed something up. Also, don't like switch the weight all the time, use admitting weight. I like to stress that because the patient's physiology doesn't change too much just based on a daily weight change, okay? Under here too, under the monitor settings, this is where you're gonna have date and time, volume, things of that nature. But those are the only 2 things under settings that I anticipate you guys potentially needing. This button here is the clinical actions button. This is usually where I tell people to go to 0, but you can also 0 here. There's not a lot you need to do here, but I will say, let's say you're monitoring, let's say you guys are doing a CVP, you're infusing something through it, right? And so your CVP value is like 300 and something because you're infusing something through that port. Well, I would not connect the blues then. I would just connect your CVP directly to your bedside monitor, and whenever you spot check your CVP, just put in like, if you spot checked it and it was 13, it's not letting me do it because it's connected. Okay. If you're spot checking your CVP because you're running stuff through it, and let's say it's 13, if you plug in the CVP of 13, then it's going to cycle your SVR based off a CVP of 13. So if you are constantly using that line and it's not just running CVP, I would recommend not to connect the CVP to the blues, just connect it directly to the bedside. Cool? Screens button here, you have 7 different screen options. Most people tend to like the physiology screen and the cockpit screen here. I'm not running it like in a demo mode, but you guys know you would have numbers and this would be in colors, right, based on what's normal. But you guys, this is fully customizable. You guys can change these parameters to say whatever you want. Let's say that all you care about is cardiac index. Your doc told you to keep an index greater than 2. That's all you care about for this specific patient. You guys can go here and just say, I want only one parameter, and I want it to be cardiac index, and I want to make it really big. You can do that, okay? So don't get inundated with too much data. If there's just a couple things that you really value for that patient, just make the monitor show that, and it'll make your life a little easier. But to change the actual parameter, like what parameter label you're looking at, click outside of the circle in this gray area, and you can change it to whatever you want. If you want to change the target ranges, let's say you have a patient with cardiomyopathy and they never achieve a cardiac index greater than 2. Let's say they're only like as high as like 1.8, you can lower those limits there, and so the monitor doesn't keep yelling at you over and over again. That is the silence button. I don't recommend permanently silencing the parameters. I just recommend tailoring the target ranges. So yeah, so these screens, like for example, if we're here, I can change any of these parameters over here on the side, not the picture parameters. Cool. Top one here, this is the goal-directed therapy screen. A lot of people don't like it. I actually really love it because you guys do get those physician orders, right, to keep your parameters tight, like CI greater than 2, MAP greater than 65, right? So you can go in here and say, okay, so my goal is to keep cardiac index greater than 2, and I'm trying to keep my MAP greater than 65. So you can tell the monitor this, And then if the patient falls below those limits, it'll actually alarm at you that you need to come in and do something, some kind of intervention. It's nice when you're titrating meds and you're not sure how the patient's going to tolerate that titration, so that you know to get back in the room and check things out because the patient's not liking it. So that's FloTrack. That's the monitor. FloTrack, again, it's super simple: gender, age, height, and weight, level, and 0. That's it. Just make sure this connections that you guys understand that, and it's super, super simple. ClearSight's going to be hard to show